So good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming out here this morning. I'm so happy that we're doing this in English because it gives me the opportunity to practice my English. I really miss that. So I'm from, just a quick background, I'm from US. I've lived in Denmark for about 20 years. I'm married here with a family. Really love it in Denmark. Unfortunately, live in Copenhagen, not here in Aarhus. It's so nice here in Aarhus.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes, I can. And I can also stand over here. In the allergy season, my voice starts to get like a little bit rough and raspy. So I need to like clear my throat, so sorry for that. I have a background working with technology and communications. I guess I call myself a marketing technologist. At Nodes, I work as a, we use this term digital experience, so I help with digital experience strategy. What I'm really interested in is helping customers with the practical realities of implementing technology to solve their business problems and to help them achieve their business objectives. And the practical realities, there are many of them, and this is really what is so important, is that there's, great to have the vision, great to have the strategy. Unfortunately, as they say, culture eats strategy, and you need to deal with the practical realities, the organizational realities when you're working with technology. So what I want to do today is I like to talk about the how, and that is, some let's say, inspirational advice and anecdotes and lessons learned and so forth that I'd like to share about how to work with what I call connected customer experiences, which, as I'll get into, I think is a sort of evolution of omnichannel, but from a customer point of view. So I previously have worked in various capacities. I, prior to joining Nodes, worked at Sitecore for 6 years, had the opportunity to work with a lot of customers throughout Europe and other parts of the world. So brands like Volvo Cars, L'Oreal, financial organizations, airlines, also B2B organizations, manufacturers, steel manufacturers, for example, in Sweden, in Belgium. In Denmark, I've had the opportunity to work at Danske Bank with mobile pay. We're now working with Nemly. And we have this project in Dubai that is really with Kerzner, whereas it's Atlantis La Palma. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So drawing from my experience, what I really love to do is share the sort of lessons learned about what really happens when you're trying to work with this stuff. And that's what I want to get into. And I think in 2015, I had the opportunity to write a book. While I worked at Sitecore, I co-authored a book called Connect. You can find it on Amazon. The proceeds go to charity, so there's no problem if I promote the book. And one of the things I learned in the course of writing that book is how important it is for brands to view the world through the eyes of their customers, through the experience of the customer, standing in the shoes of the customer. And when it comes to using technology to create business value, I really encourage all and really practice this idea of, follow the customer. Like what is it that motivates and drives customers? And if you can tap into that, then you should be on to gaining success. And that's what the brands that are successful are able to do. So, just to sort of, I'm going to talk about connected customer experiences and why. There's some research that indicates, that the idea of being data-driven and using a customer's data to create better experiences for them, from their point of view, they are in favor of that when you're able to use their data. Of course, when you're doing research, it always matters how you ask the questions. But when you're talking about customer experience, retail experiences, B2B experiences, when customers have good experiences and they become aware that their data is used to create those experiences, then generally they're okay with that. So customers, prefer that. And one of the real drivers is efficiency. We want to save time. We're using digital to get answers. We want to get the answers. We want to solve the problems. We have utilitarian questions, like really practical questions, maybe, that are more important than all the sales stuff that you're trying to pump at customers. So it's these efficient experiences. So customers prefer to do business with brands that, create efficient experiences and, using their data at the same time. Customers will also, reward brands that create better experiences and create a higher quality of customer experience in general. So customers prefer what you could think of these relevant digital experiences, And those brands that are effective with using data to provide better experiences are also rewarded by their customers. Their customers, when you do research and you compare brands that are good at providing customer experiences versus brands that are not as good, you compare the peers. The ones that are better are also ones that their customers tend to recommend more. So there's an incentive there in simply providing better customer experiences. So this idea of focusing on the customer from the customer's point of view, what's a good experience for a customer? I mean, it's often very simple, and it's often about understanding their context, the context of their situations. What I'm going to talk about. Another data point, of course, on the other end. I think we all recognize the first two. You recognize this. When you have a bad experience, brands that provide bad experiences are unrewarded, you could say. So customers, through research, do indicate that they will, go away from brands that provide bad experiences. So there's research that backs this up, and I think there's also a lot of common sense in it. The problem that often arises is that when we're doing our jobs on a day-to-day basis, we have the organizations and the practical realities get in the way, and that's what I want to talk about. Finally, and this is good. Businesses that are, when you look in your industry and you compare yourself to your peers in the same industry, and then you sort of, if there's research that shows like how your brand performs with regard to Net Promoter Score versus your competitors, the ones with better Net Promoter Scores often can be tracked back to the quality of customer experience. So when you're building your business case in your organization for making those investments for being more customer-centric, more customer data-driven, look to research to support your business case, and then create your own data. And that's also something I'm gonna talk about. So this is a little bit this idea of connected customer. Why connected customer? And so a little bit the practical reality as I've sort of hinted to. While customers they want connected experiences, they reward brands for connected experiences. Very often, it's the way that businesses are set up that sort of creates barriers. Perhaps there are traditional structures in place that we use today, and for good reason. I mean, it's not easy to run a multi-brand, multi-geography, multi-department, businesses. There needs to be some independence, and therein come silos. So the way businesses are structured, if you want to provide better connected experiences, thinking about the way the organization is structured, and very importantly about how the data is available within the organization is important. So the idea, as I also talk about, you want the right data in the right place at the right time to create the optimal experience. Part of the challenge is it lies in different places, and I'm going to directly address this. And there's also a few questions in on this. So great, it's always nice to come to a seminar and tell people what they kind of already know, right? So I want to move on and talk more about the how, and dive into these practical realities. And of course, if anybody wants to jump in with a question, go ahead at any time. Great. So I want to talk. So this idea of connected customer, I've thought about omni-channel. I think omni-channel, it's all good, but I think omni-channel is a concept that we as brands, or you as brands, or us as brands, have invented so that we can make sense, and especially analysts, the analysts of the world, right, who are just selling words. These terms that are sort of inward, they're the way that marketers think of themselves. We're omni-channel. But is that really the way customers see the world? I think that customers see the world more in terms of experiences and from one experience to the next. And certainly with digital, that's the way we interact with brands, from one experience to the next. Hopefully, not just one-offs. So what is an example? When I talk about connected customer experience, what do I mean? So the communication half of my brain likes to think this way. So first, before we get into the technique, as a person representing a brand who's trying to generate demand, sales, engagement, conversions, et cetera, the idea of what you want to do is you want to attract, you want to communicate, and in this new world of connected customer experiences, you want to listen digitally. You want to be able to listen to the small signals as well as the big signals that customers reveal as they interact with your brand, digitally. And this is really what separates the sort of like first chapter of being digital, like sort of brochure online, with the phase that we're now going into, where vendors like Sitecore and others, they build systems where you can actually capture different data points, and then you can act on those data points, and you can also get advanced sort of insights from those data points. So this idea of it's sort of like it's always been attract, communicate. Now we want to listen digitally. Remember is very important. So we actually want to think about storing what we've heard digitally, and then being able to use that in moments of decision, in moments of truth, when a customer is interacting, with your brand. It could be the second web visit. It could be the first, or the second interaction, the first interaction, or if it's an existing customer or not an existing customer. This sort of context with regard to reminding, asking relevantly, and converting. So the difference between the old way of doing it and the new way of doing it, in the old days it was face to face, and it was very much sort of like reading people psychologically and et cetera. Now we need to do that online. And what I see is that you don't really need to be a world master at doing this to get enough results that is worth it. So a little bit of relevancy and a little bit of what I call contextualization goes a long way in lifting, conversion rates and lifting engagement rates and providing better customer experiences. You want to sort of figure out how to do that, and that's what I'm going to sort of now illustrate through an example. So imagine I'm going to show an example of a journey in a connected customer experience, and I want to use the context of a customer. And this is inspired by the brand that we're working with in Dubai. It's the company is called Kerzner International. The brand is Atlantis La Palm. I'm choosing to not use them as a case because we're actually helping them right now to do what I'm going to be talking about. But conceptually, think about a resort in a destination like Dubai, where in the resort, there's a lot of activities. You book a stay for a week. There's water park, marine park, restaurants, etc. And there's opportunity. And of course, from a brand point of view, you have certain objectives where you're looking to book, stays, and you're looking to cross-sell and upsell to visitors who are coming in. So thinking about this sort of luxury resort destination, I think that there's a lot of similarities between other businesses. I mean, it's online business. It's an online business. Bookings are completed online. For rooms and suites. Restaurant visits are reserved. Booked and can even be purchased in advance. Visits to marine water park. So there's products, there's services, there's categories, there's subcategories. Same business model if it's B2B or B2C. So one of the things that's important, breaking down the journey into, from a customer point of view. And this is sort of like whatever, digital marketing 101. But what's important to think about is that in the stages of the journey from the customer point of view, there's context. If you can understand the context from the customer point of view to some degree, then you can be more relevant. So when thinking about the journey, you want to think about how can we not only establish a meaningful context given the phase that someone is in, but how can we also sort of nourish that context to create more engagement and more conversions? Content and calls to action are one way of doing that. So this is one of the really big lessons that I've learned, is that when you think about content, you want to think about the idea that it's going to capture data for you, and it can reveal the context of the customer. So editorial is not like, okay, we want to make an article about, subject X this month. It's more about, given our customer journey, given the kind of context that we're trying to listen to digitally, how should we communicate that? And how should we actually maybe make it interactive, or less interactive, or more interactive? So in the case of the luxury resort, context can be sort of detected, you could say, through content by virtue of product information. So there are locations, rooms, suites, restaurants, activities like marine water park, swim with the dolphins, feed the shark, feed the manta ray, etc. A variety of activities that could be ideal for families, for individuals, for business, etc. And throughout the journey, there's different types of content and calls to action, depending where you are in the journey, what you might have done previously versus what you're doing in the current phase can also feed into the context. Of course, in the world that we live in, we tend to use different devices for different phases that we're going through when we're making a decision. One thing that we see through data is that you might be doing your research on, a laptop. You might be doing it on a phone, but you're more likely to do the final transaction on a larger screen because maybe that's what we're more used to doing. It's more convenient. It's more. I want to say overschooling. This is the thing about so my problem is not Dinglish. What's the opposite of Dinglish, right? It's like my English is is sort of like Danish is stuck into it, right? So there's words that are just so handy. I just can't. So thinking about the journey and then thinking about this idea of listening digitally and engaging relevantly, as I talked about. There are, and this is where sort of like the traditional systems versus the newer systems. The newer systems, it gives you an opportunity to listen, to remember, and then to use that, take action on that data in the future. So let's say my past data can be used in the current moment, even though I haven't revealed that data in the current moment. So data points, channels, campaigns, interactions, location, device. Very, very important is the interactions that you may perform on a given visit. If you're visiting a website about kitchens, have you configured your kitchen yet? Like IKEA, do you go into the configurator? Do you go into the kitchen configurator? Volvo Cars, do you use the configurator? Have you started to use the configurator? Did you get halfway using the configurator? Did you complete using the configurator? Did you share using the configurator? Interactions are the gold of this sort of connected customer experience, omni-channel experience. So you want to rethink user experience to make it more interactive because you're actually capturing the data that people are revealing when you're giving them utilitarian, efficiencies. And this to me is one of the big changes in UX and one of the disciplines that we're sort of as we go from brochure online to, these ability to be interactive online. You want to go to the trouble of actually capturing the data. Volvo Cars, when I worked at Sycor, we went through an exercise with them where the car configurator reveals a lot of data about the visitor, and that data is stored in a way that it can be used on future web visits. It's not just it's not CRM data, it's CX data, sort of new category of data. So this idea of the journey and context. So think about, so what's the connected part? So if I back up. So person visits, let's say, if person visits a channel through a channel. It could be mobile web. It could be traditional web or desktop web. They look at certain rooms, suites, activities. They may trigger campaign. They're revealing GeoIP information. And what's important is that you want to be able to listen and remember from experience to experience, because you want to create connected experiences. So it certainly can be as simple as, I'm back on the website, and last time I was here, I actually started to buy something. And so maybe I should, instead of trying to bring you into the funnel, pick up where you left off, or I'm a returning customer. Or it could be so simple as, this one is always good, I've already bought the product. Why are you trying to sell it to me? Even through the checkout, they're still trying to sell the thing that you've already bought. But this idea that you are engaging with content, there's data revealed through content. There's data revealed through things like the channel that you're using, the device that you're using, et cetera. Remembering that and using that to be relevant through the phase. So through the phases, as thinking about the context, the act of doing research versus the act of I've booked and now I'm going to be on the property, right? So I booked my visit, but did I book? I looked at restaurants when I was booking. Have I booked a time at a restaurant? I looked at activities. Have I booked it? I've looked at the options for product X. Have I bought those options? Have I bought the add-on services? It's same concepts across different businesses. There are sort of form factors that are more convenient in the world that we live in, given the context of what we're doing. if I'm on the resort and it's a pretty big place, there's a lot of convenience that I can gain if I have an app on my phone versus having to use mobile web versus having to use a paper map. And this is, as Jakob was into a bit before, again, this idea of rethinking the customer journey, given the type of data that you can capture and the type of experience that you can provide, thinking about the form factor. I mean, the way that there's a lot of adoption with apps in different business, paradigms. Rethinking the customer experience. Can an app experience be better than a web or mobile web experience? This is a question that you want to consider. But certainly in the case of this resort, this is what we're designing and building for them, so that the interactions that you have on the web and mobile web can be remembered when you're in the app, and then we can understand, now I'm standing in front of the, Feed the Sharks, and there's a restaurant there, and there's a restaurant there, and there's an expensive one in the hotel for this evening, So what have I looked at before and maybe not booked, or what did I book last time I was here? And you can be more contextual with providing, content and calls to action in a sort of moment of truth, based on what we know about you. And I know it sounds fancy to stand up and talk about that, but you don't need to be a world master at doing it. You don't need to. A little bit of this goes a long way. It makes it worth it, as I have learned. But the idea of defining the journey through the different phases, thinking about, from the customer point of view, what's the best way to provide the optimal experience, and thinking about capturing data from what might have previously been a traditional idea, thought, like just editorial content. Editorial content can be some of the most valuable ways of capturing data that you can use to create better context, to generate more conversions. So that's a little bit of a conceptual walkthrough. And three tips, sort of thinking about how to, if you want to create this kind of connected customer experience. The first one, as I have learned, is like thinking about context from the customer point of view. And I know that whatever the biggest mistake we all make, and is it a mistake, but we're too much into ourselves as brands to really serve the customer in a customer-centric way. This is often what happens. You see UX designs, and like there's a lot of focus on the hero and the photography. Oh, it looks so great. The marketing department wants to look good. We look so good. Look at this great, design that we've made. Look at this great photography. It's like we're looking at ourselves, and just, that's our sort of motivation. But thinking about the customer point of view and being data-driven, thinking about, preferences, needs, and interests from a customer point of view. We have a workshop where we go through an exercise to help bring this out, for brands, thinking about journey, thinking about phases, thinking about context from a customer point of view, interest, preferences, needs. A lot of it is very utilitarian, and it actually turns out being really good for SEO, because it's the kind of information that's handy that is actually really good at attracting and engaging. And then once you've heard that, you're able to provide better context. And then, of course, what's really important for customers is outcomes. We're buying a car, we're buying a kitchen, we're buying clothes, because we want the outcomes that those products and services provide. And that's very important to keep in mind in terms of when you're trying to motivate someone to buy it in the first place. And then, of course, drivers and barriers, I think, are really, really, really crucial, because in the day-to-day reality, we're often making decisions about what we buy or don't buy because of, maybe to some degree price, but it's also, the perception of the product, or something about the product or the service that psychologically or something demographically, could be a barrier. And if you can detect barriers, that's also just as good as detecting a preference. So this idea of a context model, and then sort of putting this context model into action, operationally, thinking about, well, given the way that we analyze the customer journey, and given the way that we want to listen and engage based on context, what are some of the ways operationally we can execute on this? A lot of businesses use online advertising, to attract customers because search is so dominant, and Google is really good at like hiding the organic results just enough that you need to pay for the paid stuff, so you get more information out of it. So and other online advertisers. So online advertising, great. That's one of the best signals to listen for, and then remember not only in the current visit interaction, but in the subsequent interactions. Something that we like to focus on, but also revisits. I might have been attracted by the campaign. I might have I might have landed from organic search on a certain page, and that page, knowing that like next week or in the next visits can be important towards just asking a relevant question about what you might want to do. So there's really simple techniques, and it's easy to get started and easy to work with this, build the business case, and now he stands up. I'm getting less time than no. But, and working, so I haven't used the word personalization that much, but that's really what I'm talking about, this idea of using data to communicate in a way that you're remembering and using that data to create better experiences as experiences evolve. You don't need to work with name data to work with personalization. Someone recently said, but don't we need CRM to work with personalization? Absolutely not. Working with anonymous data is super effective in terms of getting people to name themselves and buy something, et cetera. And you can work with that data from CRM as it becomes available, and you can work with that data across devices, as I talked about. On May 27th, a colleague and myself are giving a webinar for Sitecore about Sitecore and apps. Just a quick commercial on that one. But so this is a sort of the second recommendation. Mapping the customer journey to define data and to have these connected experiences where you're using data from past experiences in the current experience. Third piece of advice, and this goes into one of the questions before, is that thinking about establishing a connected architecture. And in the Sitecore platform, there is something called the Experience Database, and this is the database that collects, the data kind of like what you see aggregated into Google, but it's actually first-party data that you own in your own database, and Sitecore collects a lot of data like channels, campaigns, pages, visits, conversions, interactions, et cetera. This experience database is really super valuable and becoming more relevant as companies want to own their data as opposed to having it aggregated out at different analytics providers. So you own the raw data with Sitecore experience database. And this to me is a sort of like best kept secret that Sitecore works with for some reason. But working with different channels, different signals. Within the Sitecore platform, we've established this idea that you can manage apps as well as other channels from the same platform. So authentication on the app works the same way as authentication on the website. Content in the Sitecore environment is used in the app as well as in web and mobile web, et cetera. And finally, very importantly, what we think is super crucial is that the idea of very often there's integration to either a customer data warehouse. Build your own customer data warehouse. You don't need to go out and buy the expensive one. Various brands that we work with, take this route. And also integrating a tool like a BI tool. And one of the things that we've done is that we've created a custom BI connector for Sitecore, where we're showing what's happening in the experience database, and we also created a way to track personalization based on click-through rates. So you're measuring all the click-through rates of all your personalization variants, and we provide dashboards like this where you get insights into performance and conversions based on personalized content. Here I have an example of, imagine on a home page you have these different banners are displayed based on different personalization rules, and we can get to understand the click-through rates and the number of click-throughs, based on visitors who are exposed to these different personalization variants based on the personalization rules that they triggered when they came to the page. So, and this BI platform is actually our connector to machine learning and starting to work with, whatever, the very fancy AI. Basically, working at scale, being more effective with generating results. This is what machine learning is all about. So that's also within the architecture, this connected architecture, if I'm so good at going back, that we've defined here. So I will stop now because I probably used too much time, and I will skip the last slide. Are there any questions? I know I'm going fast.
I have one, Chris. What about risk of old or wrongful data, broken processes? Is that, compared to what you achieve, is that a problem you would say is too small to consider, or?
I think that the idea of working with what I call CX data. It's not quite CRM data, but it's the data that you're detecting and storing based on interactions. So I think a lot of people understand Google Analytics. You're measuring the kind of things that you can get insights into. But imagine storing the raw data in your own database. You can go much further with it. So when you have that proposition, then you either want to think about, well, do we have any first-party data at all like this? If we do, is it useful? No, chuck it. Create a new model and move forward from there.
So, for instance, if I'm a family and I'm booking a hotel resort, whatever, and they use this where I'm prompted something that is relevant for the fact that I'm a family, I'm maybe 2 kids and 2 adults, and then the next time I go and want to book a room, it's in a business location. Then I might be prompted something about family trip.
Yeah, and right? So the idea of creating like a sort of data model for the customer record, and if within your business you have B2B and B2C, then the ultimate is to define a data model, the fields and the kind of data that you want to store in the record to support your business model. And then you're able to cater for, when you want to cater for these situations, you have the foundation for doing this.
But I guess the whole concept is that if you're right 90% of the time and getting closer to actually giving good advice, then the last 10% might not matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're so used to bad experiences, and it starts with like the mailer that you get in the door, right? I mean, in the old days when there was print, right, which unfortunately I know this. It was like 1-2% conversion rate or whatever the term would be in those days, and we've simply taken that notion and made it online. But now, of course, leading edge businesses are getting quite good at going beyond that. But I mean, the most of us, we're sort of catching up with this idea of going beyond the sort of these static experiences. So a little bit of context goes a long way in providing a better experience. Like, have you been here before? Have you already clicked through the sexy hero banner? Why do you keep showing me the same version of it? Unfortunately, Danske Bank, go to their website, clear your cookies, go to the front page of Danske Bank. You'll see the same video that you saw 2 years ago. They all hate it, but they don't do it. So, sorry if anyone's here, but we just the problem is internal, is that we're not doing enough about it. You have a question?
Yeah, it's right into this question, because if you go, for example, to Booking.com, you have the option: are you going for business or not?
Yes.
Probably they're using it to show you were on a family trip last time, but now it's a business trip.
Yeah. So.
That's to try to.
And what I think is really, really important is that, why should I answer it? Give me a reason to answer it. And it's not about selling me something. It's about giving me a convenience. And if we sort of follow that path, then, if you do the right thing, then you'll be rewarded. And we tend to just want to be more like sell now. And there's a bit of a mind shift as well as a rethinking the UX to go in that direction.
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting that now you're talking a lot about customer experience, and we also have this theme about omni-channel Is it good for the customer or is it good for the company? As I see it, there's a distinction between marketing data and then sales data. So what you are talking about is, I think, is that we should have much more actionable marketing data, and this is where a real value lies in the omnichannel customer experience, right? So do you see that distinctions as well from having marketing data and then you have sales data?
Yeah.
Where you can take the sales data and be more actionable on the marketing
Yeah.
data?
Yes.
And because sometimes in omnichannel you see it like, well, yeah, then we have all the data from marketing that we can use in sales, right? And I
Yeah.
think that would be
But exactly. But yeah, and I mean, it's really simple. Like, I can, through my cookie, you can know if you go to Danske Bank, like they know you're a returning customer. If you've gone into NetBank and out again, you come back to Danske Bank's homepage, and you'll see one version of the homepage because you're a customer. If you've never logged in, you'll see a different version. This is a sort of simplified example that makes the point that, recognize a customer from a non-customer. And how many of you recognize a customer from a non-customer if they return to your website? A lot of brands, they don't do that. And it's like kind of common sense and an easy place to start. Where it gets really interesting is like with the Atlantis, we're doing a lot of data capture around the, what stage are you in the booking journey? Like there's five, 6 steps. If you abandoned on step 3, what was the suite, what were the dates, what was the number of people, what was the package? We're saving that with the event. So you're anonymous, but now when you come back, we can use personalization about that product, about those dates, about those number of people, if we want to. But they just simply need to kind of bring you back to where you were, and the conversion rates go up. You don't need to be like super, I mean, it's not even creepy, it's just common sense. Like, help me, I'm here again, help me. I've been here before, like recognize me. It's, things like this that actually increase results. And then you can be world master beyond that.
Are you here to money launder?
Say?
Are you here to money launder? Press this link.
Yeah, yeah. Which you never know. It could be interesting to hear. But yes.
How will you recognize me if I deleted all my cookies?
Yeah. So digitally, there's, you could be recognized to some degree, by your location, by some. But then again, you're recognized, within a broad segment, but you're still recognized to some degree. So there's technique in this. Like if I'm visiting on one device and another device, it's 2 records. At a certain point in time, if I log into both, it becomes 1 record automatically in the Sitecore tool, and for example. But there's no sort of big. There are companies that can help you do what looks like tricky stuff if you go to a lot of trouble, but you don't really need to. So, but there are scenarios where you could be a returning person, you're not recognized because you're on a different device.
Because we look at it now here from a company perspective, but you look at it from both sides, right? As a consumer, I sometimes like to delete all my cookies because then they don't know me,
Yeah.
No one can trace me and do stuff to me, kind of thing, right? But then again, I met with some of what you're saying, damn it, why do I have to go through this again?
Yeah.
So it's this balance of how much of my private life do I want to give to these bad guys or the big companies versus the convenience of getting directly where I want.
Yeah, and but it's one of the things, and I'll absolutely last, like in the Sitecore, I talk about this experience database. Every visitor becomes almost like a CRM record, and you can see the number of visits, and you can actually sort by number of visits, and you can see there's a lot of people. There's lots and lots of return visits who are anonymous. There's enough there to work with it and make it worth it, versus all these things that us techie people dream up. What if this and what if that? So, but it's a good question. Yes, thank you very much.